if you watching this video right now, I need you to know one thing. I am not, nor will I ever be, a professional athlete. But what's up? To talk to y'all about this coming month. Alright, so first of all, let me let y'all know what the theme is for this month. The theme for this month is You Feed Me. Not you feeding me. I am broke, so if you can slide your boy a little something, that'd be appreciated. But God feeds us. God feeds us life. God feeds us energy. Whatever we need, because we as humans, we get hungry. He feeds us and He provides for us. It's coming up, right? We have the regular services. We got the regular schedule. Then the next Sunday after that, we got regular schedule. But then it's the lock-in, my boys and girls out there for y'all. It's the lock-in, all right? So furthering our sleep deprivation by staying up very late and just getting lit, all right? You know what I'm saying? So that's that. Now, since, you know, the theme of this month is going to be You Feed Me, I thought, and Aaron thought, it would be fitting if I gave y'all like a little verse, a little education. And so the verse and the story that I thought would be very fitting, right, is my boy Elijah, okay? Because there was this point in the desert where he was just very discouraged. Him in the situation with what was going on. I'm gonna read it to y'all in a second, but I thought this was just fitting. So let me give y'all a little backstory to my dude real quick, right? So this man's Elijah was a prophet sent by God. There's a whole story. I'm just paraphrasing. So, you know, I ain't trying to be no heretic now. I'm just paraphrasing. Now, there was this dude named Elijah, all right? The verse in the book that we're going to be in 1 Kings, primarily 19. But in 18, it does explain, you know, who he was as a person. You know what I'm saying? What was going down. Also a little bit in 17 too. But just to give y'all a little backstory on my dude Elijah real quick, all right? This dude Elijah was a prophet. He was a prophet that was sent by God. And it says right here in 1 Kings 17, it says, Now Elijah the Tishbite from Tishbe in Gilead said to Ahab, As the Lord of the God of Israel lives, whom I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years except at my word. Okay? Now, a whole lot of backstory we not really going to get into because the meat is coming up. You know what I'm saying? It's coming up, right? So anyways, this dude announces that he has a great drought, okay? Then God sends him into a cave, all right? A cave, it says, in Kirith Ravine, right? In a ravine. Okay, so it was in a ravine, all right. So this dude was hiding in a ravine east of Jordan, right? And ravens fed him. And also, since there was a drought, he couldn't really drink. You know, God provided for him in that way as well. So in that way, God was feeding him too. But this is when the real meat come in. This dude, right? Okay, it says after 3 years, okay, he was hiding in there. He was drinking, he was eating, he was being provided for there. So then God sends Elijah back to Ahab, and basically Ahab is not fond of this guy Elijah. Okay, Elijah's a prophet, and in that day they killed prophets. At least when he became king, he started killing prophets. He ordered the killing of prophets, and so it was a good thing that Elijah went into hiding because he was in a cave. He was away from everybody. He was safe. So God calls Elijah out of the cave, meets back with Ahab. And Ahab even addresses him. It says right here in verse 16, it says, or in 17, it says, when he saw Elijah, this is Ahab now, he said to him, Is that you troubler of Israel? And that's because of the drought. You know what I'm saying? So Elijah says, I am not the troublemaker, right? You have brought trouble on Israel because you have disobeyed the word of the Lord and you have followed Baal's ways. So why don't you meet me at Mount Carmel and we can settle this for real, okay? And this is where the story really starts to take into play. And it says right here in 1 Kings 18. So Ahab sent word throughout all Israel and assembled the prophets on Mount Carmel. Elijah went before the people and said, How long will you waver between two opinions? If the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him. But the people said nothing. Then Elijah said to them, I am the only one of the Lord's prophets left, but Baal has 450 prophets. Get 2 bulls for us. Let Baal's prophets choose one for themselves, and let them cut it into pieces and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. I will prepare the other bull and put it on the wood, but not set fire to it. Then you call on the name of the Lord your God. Then you call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord. The God who answers by fire, he is God. Now, this was a little competition, you feel what I'm saying, right? So Elijah's basically saying, all right, look, let's have a competition. I'm the only one of the Lord's prophets that is left. You have, how many did it say? It said like, you have 450, okay? But give us 2 bulls, let's cut them up, put them on fire, not set it on fire yet, but when we call on God, let's see which God answers, okay? And so the dudes, they was out there, they were the other dudes, the worshipers of Baal, right? So it's a competition. Elijah and then the worshipers of Baal. and the crowd, like all of Israel's there. So this is like a big event. It's not just like one little thing. So the people of Baal, they're cutting themselves, they're yelling, they're chanting, they're dancing, and this happened from morning to noon. So imagine, like, I don't know, early in the morning till like 12, right? And at noon, Elijah's just sitting there. He's just chilling, and then he says something. He taunts. And what does he say? My boy was really talking trash. He said, what? Shout louder. My man really says, shout louder. Surely he is a god. Perhaps he is deep in thought, or busy, or traveling. Maybe he is sleeping, or and must be awakened. So they shouted louder and slashed themselves with swords and spears as was their custom, until their blood flowed. Midday passed, and they continued their frantic prophesying until the time for the evening sacrifice. But there was no response. No one answered. No one paid attention. Okay, that was verse 27 to 29, by the way. But no one answered at all. And so Elijah, you see, this man was really talking some trash. This man really was talking some trash. So it says right here in verse 31, Elijah took 12 stones, one for each tribe descended from Jacob, to whom the word of the Lord had come, saying, your name shall be Israel. With the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord, and he dug a trench around it, large enough to hold 2 seahs, 24 pounds or 11 kilograms of water. Dang. Okay. Or of seed. Well, he put it of seed. So he arranged the wood, cut the bull up into pieces, and laid it on the wood. Then he said to them, fill 4 large jars with water and pour it on the offering and on the wood. Boy. Then he said, do it again. He said, and they did it again. Do it a third time, he ordered, and they did it a third time. The water ran down around the altar and even filled the trench. So he is talking so much trash. He's so confident. Like, he's real confident in what God's gonna do. So he basically does everything he can, even pouring water on it 3 times, right? Just large jars of water, just drenching it in water, right? And he does this as a measure so that people know and people understand that this isn't by chance. This is God that's gonna work. This is God that's gonna move. And he's kind of showboating a little bit, right? And so it says right here at verse 36, at the time of sacrifice, the prophet Elijah stepped forward and prayed, Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord, answer me, so that these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again. Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil, and also licked up the water in the trench. When all the people saw this, they fell prostrate and cried, the Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God. Then Elijah commanded them, seize the prophets of Baal. Don't let anyone get away. They seized them, and Elijah had them brought down to Kishon Valley and slaughtered there. So basically, Elijah won. Elijah filled all the water, and he built an altar to the Lord, and he just prayed once. He didn't have to cut himself. He didn't have to do any of that. Like, for the longest time, he just built an altar with 12 stones. He prayed to God, and fire came and destroyed all of what he had made, right? And this is in front of everybody. So everybody now knows Baal is not the true God, but God is the true God. This is like one of the most craziest things that's happened in history, because like, how often is it that you pray or that you read in the Bible that you pray, right, and right away you get an answer as amazing as that, right? Just burning the whole thing in front of everybody. And so Elijah, you know, so like word went around that he did this. And so they killed all the prophets of Baal, all 450, and then people believed that the Lord was God as they were shouting. So Elijah, you would think that he's on top of the world. You would think, yeah, like God really came through for me. Like, yeah, like I'm secured, I'm set with my faith. But that's the opposite of what really went down. Okay, so I think it was the king's wife. It said, I think, Jezreel, yeah, Jezreel. Jezreel, she despised that, right? And so she sent word to so she sent word, right, to tell Elijah, look, may the gods deal with me. And this is chapter 19, verse 2. So Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah to say, may the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if by this time tomorrow I do not make your life like that of one of them. So she was going to kill him. And Elijah got real scared, y'all. Elijah, my man, was really fearing for his life. And so he left, like he fled, like he was gone, bro. He was running. He wasn't thinking about nothing. He left his servant behind, like he had a servant with him or whatever. And he even left him behind, like he was alone. He wanted to be alone. And it says right here in chapter 9, verse 19, verse 3, Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Beersheba in Judah, he left his servant there, while he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. He came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. I've had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. Then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. He was very discouraged. After the amazing thing that he did for God in front of all those people, after the thing that he himself witnessed, and the faith and the confidence that he had that God would actually pull through for him, like he went from like all the way up here all the way down there. Like, it's crazy in a matter of a couple seconds, or in a matter of a little bit. And so here he is in the wilderness under a bush, sitting there like that. And so he's just in this bad situation. Like, he's tough. He went from being so good to terrible, but God didn't leave him alone. Okay, this happens to all of us in our life. We are all put in situations where it's not the most comfortable for us. You get what I'm saying? Whether we put ourselves in those situations or we're dragged into those situations by loved ones, by friends, family members, or just the way life goes, by obligations and just tiredness and just different things, right? And so Elijah, in this situation, he went from a really good spot in his faith, in his life, in his confidence, down to somewhere where it's not so great, where there's not really that hope. And to him, in his place, it was so bad that he prayed that God would take his life. Now, that's crazy. That's crazy. And so I couldn't imagine what it would feel like to come from such a high to then get so low and then not wish that I had my life. But he was overwhelmed, and I couldn't imagine it, but I know it's crazy. I know he must have been in a really bad situation, mentally and physically and emotionally to beg and pray that God would take his life. But God didn't leave him alone. Okay. In this situation, God didn't leave him alone. And so us being in this situation, he won't leave us alone either. But it says right here in verse, what does it say? What the verse say? It says right here in verse 5, then he lay down under the bush and fell asleep. All at once, an angel touched him and said, get up and eat. He looked around, and there was by his head some bread baked over hot coals, and a jar of water. He ate and drank and then lay down again. Then the angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him and said, get up and eat, for the journey is too much for you. Boys, my boys, and girls, for you girls out there, you know what I'm saying, right? So he literally saw an angel and went back to sleep. See, I don't know about y'all, but if I saw an angel, ooh, bro, I would be tripping. I would be wilding. I'd be crazy. But he was just at such a bad point mentally and emotionally that he just went back to sleep. Now, God didn't leave him there. He didn't just say, okay, you rejected me, so I'm going to reject you. God went back. He sent the angel a second time, and the angel said, all right, get up and eat, because what's coming up ahead is too much for you. So it says right here, it starts at verse 8. So he got up and ate and drank. Strengthened by that food, he traveled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. There he went into a cave and spent the night. So in this time of him hiding under this bush thing, falling asleep, just wishing that his life would be taken away, God came through. He didn't ask, he didn't want, he wasn't excited the first time through, but God still provided. God had it right in front of him, and God came through, right? But for a lot of us in our situations, we don't see this happening. We don't see this in the world. We don't see this happening in our life. We don't hear about angels coming down. We don't hear about, people praying and then their problems just being solved. We don't hear about this stuff. And in our own lives, it's kind of hard for us to believe that if we pray, if we read the Bible, that God will magically, come and help us. Where's our angels? Where's our bread and cake? Where's our where's our salvation kind of thing? Like, where's our rescue? And that's not always the case. Right? Sometimes we look in the wrong places, and sometimes we look for the wrong reasons, but God is there to provide. God is there to feed. Okay. So I know a lot of you guys are going through some stuff that you personally, what you're going through, and you don't really tell many people. Sometimes you joke about it so much that it demonetizes the value of what's going on. Like, you play around with it so much, you just don't want to take it seriously, and it's not as heavy that way, I guess, if that makes any sense. But you guys are going through your own trials and tribulations. You guys are going through stuff that We all are. Stuff that we don't like to admit, stuff that we keep hidden, and then we let it rot inside of us until it becomes just too much to handle. Okay, but God feeds us. This is just one example of God literally feeding him, but God feeds us. God not only understands that we're hungry and that we need help and that we need this weight lifted off of our shoulders, that we need guidance, that we need whatever we need. He not only understands that, but he's willing to give that to us. He's willing to feed us the things that we lack. And you only need to have faith. You only need to trust in him, right? Because when you pray, you shouldn't always expect to get your answer. And so in this story, I don't know, it just kind of reminded us, because he was literally fed. It just kind of reminded me of just God feeding us, in our times of worry, in our times of doubt, in our times of being confused and lost and not really having direction, or even the direction that we may want. Keep y'all updated. Y'all already know what it is. It's ACOG in the cut. I'm out. ACOG!